All right, this week's question of the week comes from one of my viewers, which I thought was an excellent question. It was, how do you leave a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu school on good terms without burning bridges, and you're going to train at another Brazilian Jiu Jitsu school in town? What are my recommendations for how to go about doing this? And I thought it was a great question, so I made it this week's question of the week. People change Jiu Jitsu schools for various reasons. Sometimes it's just location. I've got, there's probably 25 schools here in San Antonio, give or take a few. I've got students that drive all the way from the west side, and I'm on the east side of San Antonio, which could be a 45 minute commute. And they're passing a lot of Jiu Jitsu schools to get to my school. Sometimes they're gonna make that drive and they're gonna be like, you know what? There's a school 5 minutes from my house. This is more practical for me. And they're gonna switch schools. Sometimes I'll lose students because they wanna do more no-gi training. And almost all my classes are in gi. Sometimes I'll lose students because they wanna be MMA fighters, and I don't have an MMA program at my school. So I don't teach Muay Thai or boxing or any of the striking arts. I just teach Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Judo. So sometimes they're gonna leave for those reasons. Sometimes, they're just not gonna like you, or that, they don't like the vibe of your school and they're gonna wanna switch. And so switching is, it's like, it happens. No instructor, no school owner is ever happy to lose students. But there's certain things that a student can do that absolutely would burn the bridges. Now, if you're one of those people that's like, man, I'm leaving this school, I'm mad at this instructor or the school owner, and I want to burn these bridges, this is not the video for you. You could probably just click off and watch another video, because what I'm going to talk about today is how not to burn bridges. So some of the most common things that I see about burning bridges is like, one, if you're going to leave a school, it's always polite to just let the school owner or instructor know, like, hey, I'm leaving, this is why I'm leaving. Face to face is best, but even if you gotta send them I've had people send me little Facebook messages or stuff, and they're like, hey, I'm leaving for these reasons, and that's always appreciated. Because I never want to lose a student, but it happens. And like one time, I didn't see this student for a while, and so I just called him. I'm like, hey man, I haven't seen you for a while. Turned out he'd been shot. And yeah, it was a crazy incident here in San Antonio. He was asleep in his bed in his apartment in San Antonio, and somebody had a negligent discharge in another apartment, and the bullet hit him. I was like, oh man. And so sometimes when you don't see a student for a while, you're like, man, did they die? So it's nice if the student just says, hey, I'm either moving, or I'm not going to train with you anymore for whatever reason. And that's nice. And I think if you do that, most jiu-jitsu school owners and instructors are gonna, continue to have a friendly relationship with you. It's not gonna be any kind of drama. Where I see people have drama is, like, let's say you decide you want to leave the school. Cool. And then you reach back to the school, to your other classmates, and tell a bunch of them like, hey, this other school that I'm at is so much better than the school we were at. You should come over here too. I talked to this guy one time, and he was really proud of himself, that him and 10 other students were leaving his previous school and they were switching to another school. And he couldn't understand why his previous instructor was so upset. And so I tried to explain it to him. I'm like, look, every school has its own monthly tuition. Mine for adults is $110 a month. So if 10 of my students, if one of my students just walk out the door, okay, that's $110 a month I'm not getting anymore. It's like, okay, I'll make that up. New students come in. You don't like to lose students, but it happens. But if one of my students leaves and then convinces 10 others to leave, well, now you times my monthly tuition by 10. Now I'm taking $1,100 a month. I just took that loss. So ask yourself, if somebody cost you in your paycheck for the next couple months $1,100, how happy would you be to see them? So understand human relations. If you just hit somebody like that, yeah, they're not going to be thrilled. Or, you know, like there's a guy in town, he used to train at a school, and he opened up a school directly across the street from his instructor. Of course your instructor is going to be upset about it. You know, it's like, not you just opened up another school in town, but you opened up directly across the street. And, you know, like people be like, oh, well, you know, it's just business. Really? Yeah, I would see that as more personal. Same thing happened. I remember a friend of mine in school in DC, Dave Jacobs, when he had a school up there. He had a former instructor who not only left, but opened up directly across the street. And I remember standing at Dave's school, looking directly across the street at this dude's school. I'm like, wow, big city like DC, and the only spot you could find is directly across the street. So yeah, that's gonna burn bridges. Or, you know, like I've seen guys who leave to go teach at other schools, and you know, most schools are gonna support that. It's like, oh yeah, you know, you're growing, you go teach at other schools. Where it's gonna ruffle feathers is if you use the connections at your previous school and start calling those students, and you're like, hey, you know, I'm teaching over here now, you should come teach over there. You know, you should come train over there instead of where you're at. Yeah, that's not the way you want to leave schools, and of course that's going to burn bridges. So, and it's just the same thing if let's say in your everyday job, let's say you're a HVAC technician, you do heating and cooling, and you get laid off, or the company terminates your employment for whatever reason, and you're like, well, you're going to be unhappy about that. But you'd be even unhappier if you found out that company then called all the other HVAC companies in town to let them know, you know, why they terminated you and that you weren't a good employee. Then you wouldn't be so excited about, oh, well, you know, they're just speaking their truth. I think that's what the new generation says. They're speaking their truth. Oh, okay. Well, how excited would you be as you're now trying to find a new job if your former employee is speaking their truth to all these other companies? So you wouldn't be. So understand it from the school owner's perspective, from the, you know, that, hey, if you walk out, oh yeah, that's unpleasant. But if you walk out and you badmouth them, that's going to be even more unpleasant. And if you walk out and you convince a large group of their students to leave with you, or you open up a business directly across the street from them that's now, you know, infringing on your business, you know, it's like, yeah, they're going to take that personal. And, you know, y'all probably ain't going to go to barbecues together no more. If those things aren't important to you and that's bridges you want to burn and you don't care, well, like I said, this video wasn't for you. If you want to leave the school and still be on good terms, you know, those are my suggestions of what not to do. If anybody's got suggestions down below, man, feel free to comment, you know, make your inputs. Because like I said, like, you know, I've had students leave me for other schools in town, and it's like, am I thrilled about it? No. But when I see them, I still warmly receive them. You know, I've even had them come back and say, hey, you know, I'm gonna be on your side of town. It's okay if I stop in and train with you guys today? Yeah, cool. Come train with me. You know, but it's about how you leave. If you leave and you burn all the bridges, don't be surprised that, you know, like, you don't have a way back. And if you're cool with that, then do you. But if you want to maintain a cordial relationship, yeah, those are some of the ideas that you ought not do. All right, like I said, anybody got any input, ideas, feel free to comment below. And until next week, ciao.